Joining us for this edition of The Rock Business is none other than the Greg Kihn. How are you?
Yes. I'm feeling great. Everything's going good. New album, new band, new everything. Got a new book in the works. How about you, Dayna? You look great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You know, I have to admit, Greg and I have tried to get this together. This is our third time. The first time he couldn't get Skype to work on his end. Second time we recorded this great interview and there were no vocals. So we're hoping that this... you are the most easygoing person to work with. This was not in my original questions, so I'm going to start off with a brand new question.
Okay, go ahead.
Where does this positive energy, you're just a good guy, where does this come from?
Actually, I'm not that great of a guy, but I think that positive energy comes from my mom. She really instilled a lot of that. She had this you can't stop me attitude. You know, whether it was school, this was my typical mom's lecture. She'd go, Greg, that's okay for the other kids. They're stupid, but not for you. You're Greg. I expect more out of you. And I used to hear that all the time, and really, I'm saying, hey, come on, easy up. I like my life, so I don't take every little thing really seriously. Being a musician, it's a privilege. It's not even a job. It's a privilege. Being a writer is a privilege. Being on your show is a privilege. So, really, life is good, and to pretend it's otherwise would be false.
All right. Well, then let's go back to the first question I asked on the original interview, which is, and this is a good lead-in, with everything you've done, everything you've achieved, everything you're still doing, it all began with your mom. When she did something. What was it she did?
Oh, God, she's gone now, and God bless her. Every time I talk or I explain this story to somebody in an interview or something, I'm sure that she's looking down from heaven with a big smile, because she was the one that really got me into show business. When I was like 13 or 14, or maybe 15, me and my cousin, I had a guitar, my cousin had a banjo. We had a little folk group. This was back in the Kingston Trio days. And, I only knew 3 chords. Of course, I realized those 3 chords were the key to the universe. I didn't know that yet. So I go into the shower stall in my mom's bathroom because it had great acoustics. And I'd shut myself in there. I had a little Wallensack tape recorder about this big, really a piece of junk with 3 inches of tape. And I recorded a couple songs. They were supposed to be songs that you had written. And I wrote terrible songs. I remember the song. It was Hey Pretty Girl was the name of the song. And it was about that was about the depth of it as well. Hey Pretty Girl. So I go in there, I record the thing, I forget all about it. A couple of weeks later, my mom sends it to the top 40 station, WCAO, growing up in Baltimore. Well, what happens? I won the contest. I look back on this, and I think to myself, wow, there was no talent in Baltimore that year? I mean, why did I win? I win the contest. I get 3 things that affect me for the rest of my life. I won a Vox electric guitar, teardrop, Brian Jones model. I got a electric typewriter. Do you remember typewriters?
I do.
Yeah, they were cool. And a stack of records. So I would wind up writing stories on the typewriters, playing the guitar, and playing the records on the radio. So there was my life. Oh, we could have quit right there and said, okay, just project it out. Extrapolate from here.
That's
but
funny.
it was great.
You mentioned a typewriter. I always tell people that, you can always defer to yes. You can pretty much fake your way through anything until you learn it, except for maybe typing, because that's how I got my foot in the door of a major market radio station. I was like, oh, yeah, I can type. No problem. Okay, let's fast forward to you move out to San Francisco during just an amazing time for San Francisco for music. And you did a lot of odd jobs until you made it. Can you look back now on some of those odd jobs and say your work ethic or some things you use to this day you learned trying to survive back in those early days?
I really think that work ethic was part of it, because, that was another thing that your parents instilled in you. I've always been, I'm 100% Polish, all four sides of the family, so I got that Polish work ethic from the word go. But I remember when I used to paint houses. Me and my buddy, the same buddy that I would play music with, we would paint houses for money. And I remember there was a guy in the music business, and I was painting his house, and I was looking through the window, and he was listening to records, and it looked like he had a great life going on there. Whoa, what is this guy doing? And he turns out he's a Hollywood producer. And I remember I must have been like 17, 18 at the time, and I said something like, hey, I write songs. I'm really good. You got to give me a chance. Check one of my songs out. Let me bring my guitar tomorrow. And I never gave me a chance, but I just felt good about it later, because you know what? I was not fibbing. I was telling the truth. I did have songs. We used to do busking. Remember what busking was?
Isn't that like playing on the street, or
that's
like they do
exactly
in the subway?
what it is. Playing on the street on Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley, Main Street hippiedom, USA, and there was a guy that used to go to the Cafe Mediterranean and get a cup of coffee every morning. And he was the owner of a rock and roll saloon called the Long Branch Saloon in Berkeley. And his name was Malcolm, and he would walk by every day. Hey, how you doing, man? And one day he comes up to me, he goes, it's a shame that you don't have a band, because I really like your music, and you could play at my club if you had a band. So I just started lying right there. I got a band? I got a great, you got to check my band out. So that Sunday night, we put together, by the way, a band in 1 week. And that band stayed together for 18 years and made 18 albums and a whole bunch of hit records. Amazing, because it was me and Steve Wright, the bass player. He comes to me and he goes, my brother-in-law is a pretty decent drummer, so he brings Larry in. He's his brother-in-law. Then he goes, hey, I knew a guy that was pretty decent on the guitar when I was in high school. We wound up getting Dave Carpenter on the guitar, and the rest was history. I lied my way in.
See?
We came up with songs. I remember the first song list. We had like Wild Thing by the Trogs and Gloria and all these garage rock staples, because we didn't have any real repertoire.
Okay, well let's go back to let's move on to that first album, and then all the album titles. Greg Kihn again. In fact, when I went to put this interview on my schedule, I just automatically typed Greg Kihn again, and I just started laughing. I was like, album titles, there they are.
That's how it happened, Dana, because I remember we made the first album. It was just called Greg Kihn. Actually, I was working at Rather Ripped Records, one of the famous record stores in Berkeley, right there at the corner of Spruce and Eunice, and I was working at the store when we shot the album cover. So I had to wait for my lunch hour to go around the sides. Shoot, if you look at the album cover now, it's me in front of the Rather Ripped Records store. So we did it so quickly. We were so homegrown. We didn't think about the fact that it was impossible. No, you guys are never going to have a record. We were distributed out of the back of a Volkswagen Bug, for God's sakes. We had, I go in there that first week, and we're doing our songs, and Matthew Kaufman, who was the head of Berkeley Records, there were four groups living in Berkeley at the time: Earthquake, Jonathan Richman, and the Modern Lovers, and we were all good friends. The Rubinoos and the Greg Kihn Band, and nobody wanted us. Nobody. We made the rounds, couldn't get. A&M said no. Warner Brothers said no. Everything said no. was like, well, we don't need another rock band. Just go home and come back in 20 years. So we started our own Berserkly record company. We did it. We had enough money to do one record, one LP, if everybody did like 2 or 3 songs. That was it. So we did it. We recorded it after hours. I think it was at Wally Hyder's on Turk Street in San Francisco. So we go in there after hours. We started at midnight, quit at 6, cut the whole album in one night. You know, it goes out. Everybody likes it. It starts getting played on the radio. And the next thing that happens is we get signed to all the labels in the world. Playboy Records. And it was what was the Playboy guy's name? You know the guy, I mean.
Hugh Hefner?
Hugh.
Yeah.
It was Hugh's baby. Hugh liked it. He had his little girlfriend, Barbie Benton. She was the big star. And one of his accountants says, you know, Hugh, you got to put some real artists on the record or you're not going to look like a real record company to the IRS. It looks like her record company. So he goes, yeah, you're right. So they hired Berserkly Records. Suddenly we gave them 4 big catalog items, one from each band. And I put out was the first, the second album, which was Greg Kihn again. And that's how it started. And then we got to the next one. Was what are we going to use? We've already used Greg Kihn. We've used Greg Kihn again. And then how about next to Kihn? Oh, yeah. The next thing I knew, it was 20 albums later. We had Conspiracy, Consolidation. You know, it just unbelievable. And it kept going. And you know what? It keeps going to this day, as a matter of fact.
I was going to say, there's a new one.
My new album right here.
There you go. Rekindled.
There you go. Rekindled. As in, I hope this album rekindles my career.
How was it to be back in the studio?
Oh, man, it was a blast. You know, we did this at a friend of mine's studio, Robert Berry, who's now the bass player in the band. My son Rye is the lead guitar player in the band, and he was a student of Joe Satriani back in the day.
Oh,
wow. When Joe was in my band back in whenever that was, and Rye was really a great guitar player. So I had my son on guitar, Robert Berry on bass, and we just got a new drummer about 6 months ago, Dave Lauser. He is on loan.
From
He's
Sammy
great.
Hagar.
Yeah, he's on loan from Sammy Hagar. And I asked, because I did a charity gig like with Sammy half a year ago. So I said, he goes, here, use my guy because I got to do a Chicken Foot album. I got to do a Chicken Foot tour. We're just doing a Van Halen this and a this, that, and the other. He goes, I'm solid in a year, maybe 2 years. So why don't you use Dave? I don't want him to sit around on his butt all these times. Turns out he's a really great drummer. And he's like Keith Moon. He's real busy, and I really love busy drummers. They're always, you know, always all over that kit. So we played maybe a dozen gigs with the new band, and it's been great. And in fact, we played last Saturday night, and my son was getting standing ovations. And, you know, this is the way rock and roll should be.
How fun. Now let's move on to some other careers. You had a pretty long and successful career in radio. I mean, I was actually driving, I don't know, I think I was in the middle of Iowa or something, driving from a speech back to the airport. I think it was early one morning, and I heard, you know, the DJ was doing the whole DJ morning show thing, and the DJ said, and this is Greg Kihn, and I'll be right back. And I was like, like Greg Kihn? It's like, not like there's a whole lot of people named Greg Kihn. And I thought, well, maybe people have decided that's a good radio name. And sure enough, you came back.
You know, I got to tell you, when I first started doing radio, I was filling in for a guy. A good friend of mine, Chris Jackson, and he was at a little mom-and-pop radio station called K-Fox in San Jose, California. And he says, look, I'm going to Hawaii for 2 weeks, and you fill in for me 7 to midnight. No problem. So he gives me the key, how to operate all the stuff, and I go in there and I start having a ball. In fact, at the end of the 2 weeks, I didn't want to stop. Then the station manager comes up to me and he goes, I'd like to hire you as our full-time guy. And this is like 7 to midnight. And I said, then I wouldn't have to go on the road, would I? No, I'd be making money and I could stay home and work my novels. I got a bunch of novels in the works. So we go to, I go to work and everything's going good. And he says they had Imus in the morning. Mm-hmm. And Imus, they were getting rid of Imus. And he says, I need somebody to fill in the morning until I find a replacement for Imus. No problem, I'll do it. But I can't, just don't count on me to get up at 4 a.m. every night. No, that's not going to happen. So I get up at 4 and I go down there for 2 weeks. 3 weeks, 4 weeks go by, and the station manager calls me into his office and he goes, Greg, would you do this all the time? And I said, no, I can't. I can't get up. It's too horrible. I can't go to bed at 9. I usually go to bed at 4, and now I get up at 4. So he writes down a figure on a piece of paper. He goes, here, would you do it for this much money? And I look at it and I go, what time do you want me to be here? It was so much money. I thought, wow, this is what morning show guys, that's what they make. So I started doing it. And the next thing I know, 18 years goes by. We're the #1 morning show in the Bay Area. And it was a great run. I loved it. I loved talking to the people. But, I missed making records. And I missed going out on tour. And after a while, it just started tugging at my heartstrings. And I knew if I didn't do it now, in a couple of years, I'd get too old for this. And, my son is ready to go now. So I said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it now. Yeah. And, we made an album.
It's like stop talking about it and do it.
Just do it. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and you seem to have that same sort of drive and work ethic with your novels. Tell us a little bit about your novels.
Novels are a lot of fun to write. They take longer than songs. Obviously, it takes a year to write a novel. It takes about 20 minutes to write a good song. So, when I was on KFOX doing my radio show in the morning, I used to interview people every day. And during the course of my interviews, I interviewed Paul McCartney several times. Fascinating guy. Ringo Starr, a couple of times. Pete Best, the original drummer for the Beatles. Mm-hmm. Talked to him. And I started asking him all these questions about the early Beatles. For instance, I asked Ringo, where did you guys get your music? Because, how did you get Twist and Shout by the Isleys? How did you do that? He goes, he gave me the same answer that Paul McCartney told me. And he said, we got them from merchant marines who went to the States, got the CDs, got 45s, brought them back. We didn't have import shops in Liverpool. We didn't have, nothing. And it was this guy. So it gave me the idea for a character named Dustbin Bob. Dustbin, by the way, is a garbage can in England. If you're looking for the dustbin, it's over there, right there. And so they call this guy Dustbin Bob, and he becomes best friends with the Beatles. Why? Because he's got all these records. He's the same age. They love their records, and he starts lending them to the Beatles. And the Beatles are about to leave for Hamburg, and they need an entire repertoire of songs, and here comes Dustbin Bob with the songs. And he becomes their fast friend for their entire lives until the end of Beatlemania when he saves their lives. I don't want to give it away. He does save their lives.
So are you pitching this to Hollywood? Because it sounds like a movie to me.
I really, really want to. I've got a couple of people. I've been bending a few ears down there, so we'll see.
Okay. Now, part of what I do with this series is not only to talk to just really great people like you and find the backstories and find out how you put things together, but it's also to help entrepreneurs and small business owners to maybe rethink what they're doing or how they're doing something or looking for solutions or new ideas. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, you've been with your manager and your business partner, Joel, for like 30 plus years, a million years, you guys. What do you attribute? Because, you know, so many people come and go.
Yeah.
You guys have a great working relationship. What is it that has made this business relationship last for over 30 years?
One of the things is that we're always at each other's throats. We're not afraid to speak our minds.
Communication.
In fact, I was strangling him yesterday. I driving back from the studio. But the bottom line was, you know, we were both kind of easygoing guys. You know, didn't ever panic. Always kind of stayed cool. And we had it was the berserkly ethic. We started out, you know, like very homegrown, very hippie, very, you know, backroom kind of thing. And we've always been like that ever since that. Even when we were big rock stars and we were like driving around in limos, you know, like during the Jeopardy era and stuff. You know, I was never really comfortable in a limo. I was always Greg, and I've always been that thing. And I think that's one thing that the guys in the band and my son and all the roadies and all the people associated with the band, we're all just regular guys, and it works great. Somehow, when you got a guy that's like always, you know, bugging everybody, you know, oh my God, we're late, we got to get there. That just bums everybody out. So we just like, you know, hey, you know what? We'll get there when we get there. All right, start without us. So
all right, and the one question I ask anybody, whether they're a music rock star or a business rock star, is what is the one thing you do every day for success? Obviously, it takes a bunch of things all day, every day. But if you had to pick one thing you do every day, what is it?
Right. I write every day, usually in the morning, and sometimes I just write a laundry list or a stupid story or a piece of a short poem or a snatch of a lyric or something. And I do that every day. Way back in the beginning, when this was all starting, we used to have a saying that every day you do something for your career. Every day you write a song, or you go down to the music store and you hang out, or just every day you did something right. That's something that helped your career. And then if you did that every day for a couple of years, eventually you'd make it. And you know, I've had a lot of epiphanies over the years. You know, like writing songs, for instance. It's very easy to write hit songs. It should be easy, and it is easy. What's really hard is writing crappy songs. So when I sit down to write a song, when I wrote Jeopardy, for instance, Steve came in, he started playing the guitar, the keyboard riff, and I just jumped in and I started singing Our Loves in Jeopardy. I don't know where it came from. It just came from the sky. I just channeled it. And that's the way the great songs are written. So if you're trying too hard, like if you're just sweating it out for 3 weeks, you know that's not going to be successful. If the thing just comes to you and it just pops into your head, that's how you write a successful song. And over the years, you know, all the songs that I have written that were hits like Jeopardy or the Breakup Song or Lucky or whatever, all of those songs had one thing in common. They were all written in like 15 minutes. And the songs that I'd worked really hard on didn't even make the cut. So the same thing happened to me when I was writing. You know, I'd write a chapter and it would be, you know, I'd be thinking, hey, I'm Ernest Hemingway here. I'm really doing good. And immediately, and then I get to the chapter and I'm like, you know what? I should have just told the story. I was trying to shoehorn too many words in there. I took a lesson from my good buddy, the almost governor of Texas, Kinky Friedman. And Kinky, by the way, writes on an old Underwood typewriter, an Underwood. And he always writes on a typewriter, never writes on his computer. And, he says, hey, look, write it even if it sucks. Because if you don't write it and it sucks, you can always change it later.
Right.
But, he said, look, you're right. I'm writing songs now, Kinky. I'm trying to write a novel, but it sucks. He goes, don't worry. Just write it anyway. Write it if it sucks. It's still good. And that's one way. That's one way I learned to do it.
I love that. Well, before I let you go, there's one story that came up the second time we tried to do this interview, and I can't leave you without having you tell that story again. And it's where the deep and brilliant lyrics came from.
Yeah,
the Breakup Song.
That was a good example of a song that was like, we were writing it. I remember we were writing it, and we had a garage place that we rehearsed in, and it was Berkeley Rental Space, and we were down there. We would used to get every day. We'd go down there for a couple hours and mess around with songs. And I had a song, but I only had half the lyrics. So, I play it for the guys, and they love it. You know what? Screw the other half of the lyrics. We'll just go in. We have a recording session in 2 days. Let's just go in and do it. So I go in. I go to the recording session. I'm waiting for the song to go. I still don't have enough lyrics, so I start filling in stuff with We had broken. See, my original idea was we had broken up for good just an hour before, and something went, and I count on the door, right, or something there. The last thing I expected to do was you had broken up for good just an hour before. Well, I go and I sing the whole song. Every other line is and I'm thinking I'm going to get an earful when I get back in the studio. And these guys are all sitting back going, that is the deepest lyric you've ever written. Just write them, do them like that every time. And it was kind of funny because, a year later, we could be walking down the street. It translates into every known language. I mean, I can walk down the street in Tokyo and a guy could, oh, you the guy! Yeah, you that guy! I love that guy! So, it's you learn something that translates into every language.
Well, I adore you. I feel like we're close personal friends after 3 times trying to get this interview.
Yeah, it has been.
And I just made myself a note. Find out Greg Kihn dates, because I swear I'm going to get on an airplane and come to one of these shows just so
we're all over the country. I should say that if you go over to gregkihn.com, which is your headquarters for all things Greg Kihn, it has all of the tour dates, and they're being added every day. In fact, we added 2 of them yesterday. So check there. We're going to be in like Cincinnati and Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and all these places. So just check. Also, if you want to get the new album rekindled, I got that for sale. It's available everywhere, iTunes, all the different things.
We'll have links to all of that in the
and then there's the novels and all that stuff. So there's tons of stuff there. You could spend 20 minutes going through it.
I'm trying to think of a Kihn word, a continuum.
A continuous groove.
There you go. Well, you take care, and thanks again for doing this with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Dayna, and let's do it again sometime.
Hopefully not just again next week.
Yeah.
All right, thank you again. I appreciate it.